Hello. This video is to talk about our body mechanics to get our bodies organized and ready for exercise. So I'm going to talk about posture mechanics, talk about breath mechanics, and talk about core mechanics. And all of these three work together to support us to maximize the results of the exercise that we're doing. So to talk about posture first, I know you've got me about knees up, but I'm standing firmly on my feet. In yoga, we like to talk about using the four corners of my feet to connect to the floor. The energy's coming up my legs, and I'm going to feel my hip points very purposefully here. So probably when you stand up, you are fairly much in neutral for your pelvis. But just explore a little bit for me, tilting your hips back and then tilting your hips forward. So this is like a pelvic tilt that you know about, tilting back, right? So this pelvic tilt sometimes we do on the floor to bring our spine down to the mat. So do that and then kind of soften, do less, do less, do less. And then I want you to have hands on hip points. And when I come neutral, so I'm very even, I want to make one minor adjustment, and that is using my muscles in here, my rectus abdominis and my transverse abdominis, to just pull my hip points up. It's very subtle. I'm just slightly pulling them up, sending the energy up. And it's really coming, the tug is coming from the bottom of my pelvic floor. So there's a little tug and everything comes up. And it's a little message to cinch in my waist here. It's like a little message, so I'm really thinking that I'm cinching in my waist. All right, great. Now, the energy keeps coming up, and I'm going to knit my front ribs in. So rectus abdominis is coming from the top of my pelvis to the bottom of my ribs, and I can use these muscles to knit my ribs in. My chest is lifted. I think of my collarbone as smiling, and my shoulders are externally rotated. My shoulders are externally rotated. I'll take the sweatshirt off soon. Shoulders are externally rotated. And then what's going on with my head? My head is really balanced on my shoulders. So you might feel that sometimes your chin's a little bit forward. Life kind of pulls us forward. And this actually puts a kink in my spine, or if my spine was a garden hose, it puts a kink in the garden hose. Alternatively, some people are kind of way back here, which puts a different kind of kink in the garden hose. So what I want to do is find that sort of perfectly balanced place where I feel my head is centered on the centered kind of in the center of gravity on my shoulders. If I put my hand here, it's almost like I'm filling my hand with my skull. My crown is reaching up, and my chin is kind of pointed down. And this feels like a really good place to stand for me. Now let's get into the breath. So I want to use my diaphragm, which is in the middle of my abdominals, to encourage a really rich, full breath. So if I put my hands on my ribs, I invite you to do this, and I inhale. See how my ribs come out? And then I exhale, my ribs come in. Try that again. So what's happening is there's a muscle right here, and when I inhale, that muscle is pushing down, it's contracting and pushing down, and when I exhale, it's lifting up. That's what's happening here. And so what's happening with that action here is, let's talk about what's happening in my belly. So that when I inhale, the air comes into my ribs, but it also kind of comes into my belly somewhat too. And then when I exhale and my diaphragm pulls up, it actually tugs and pulls my pelvic floor up, and then my whole core comes in and up. My whole core comes in and up. There's the breath. Shoulders still externally rotated, collarbone still smiling, head still balanced. All right, so we've talked about posture, we've talked about the breath. Let's kind of finish it off by finishing our core integration. So I'm really arguing that The breath helps my core to move. And my core is not a static thing. We're sometimes encouraged to just hold it in or squeeze a Kegel as if we were just kind of statically holding that. That's not exactly what we want to do. We want to use the breath to really activate the core muscles. So you've got muscles in the front here, you've got muscles in the back here, and you've got muscles on the side that kind of cross like this, right? So you've got this whole set of muscles, all of which are working to really support your torso. And we want to think about being able to move in a unit from the top of my pelvis to my throat. So I can move everything here as a unit, hinging at the hip. Okay, so there we are. Crown is reaching, feet are connected, energy's coming up, shoulders externally rotated, and I'm working with my breath. That's what we advise. Let us know if you have any questions.